It is the final boss of Story Mode Arc 5 that made her debut fairly recently in Meteorot S. It is FHJ00 Olindi Earth, coming to the game with a hit of Confusion, Pile, Effect Clear, Sea Legs, and the Shura leg ability, which buffs power when a part is attacked and broken from an incoming enemy. Now, those that have played Story Mode Arc 5 and challenged Olindi Earth so far already know how much of a pain in the neck she is, and I do want to take a moment briefly just to kind of make a comment and say at this stage how impressed I am that Imagineer and Meteorot is kind of breaking the mold when it comes especially to their boss-type bots, because in the past, say for instance with God Emperor or Beastmaster, it's all just very powerful shooting or attack or fighting skills essentially. But with Olindi Earth, it seems, and even with other bots, say for instance Dead Quasar or Beast Chimera or Parallel Deuce, or especially in this case with Olindi Earth, they're getting much more creative in being able to use the boss bot as a pure set or as mixed parts, and they still have ways to counteract things that would make them very easily cheesable and abusable to where you can make the fight a lot easier. In this case with Confusion, it's marked as a new skill, but those that have played older games will know this particular skill very well, and the PTSD thereof will come back very quickly. Confusion confuses the target or makes them unable to choose a target or action for their next 3 turns. This effect will close and cancel when those 3 turns have passed or when they are attacked, and the ailment will then cancel. Now, a lot of folks may look at this and say, oh, well, this only applies to offense-based skills, so my supporter or my healer or my defender will be just fine. Don't think you're out of the clear just yet, because Confusion scrambles everything. I actually once bore witness to someone who shared on Twitter they were using the Rebirth skill to potentially revive an ally and maybe turn the field to battle, and what that confused bot did was actually go turn around and revive a fallen enemy Meteorot. So this skill alone is very, very catastrophic if you use it in the right hands. And even in the not as good hands, it can be a very annoying skill to make use of if it's on the opposing side, or maybe something very catastrophic to be used if you know how to use it yourself. And even with its base damage being about 498, barely 500, in the case of ailments, I will touch base on the fact and reiterate, damage does not matter, because the primary goal is not to be dealing damage with an ailment, but instead making life miserable. Right Arm of Pile is a standard melee skill that includes defense ignore when attacking, so that base damage of 1368 will go up just a little bit and ignore some of the leg's resistance stats when attacking, so always a very handy skill to make use of. I'd say it's probably one of the next best under, say, basic sword in terms of conventional melee skills to make use of or include in a melee build. Left Arm of Effect Clear also is very handy, as it does punish anyone that uses stat cleanse or any kind of supporting buffs. And just to touch on that ever so briefly, and touching on the comment of me marveling on bots in previous, Olindi Earth as a pure set really does seem to make use of her kit very well as a pure set and as a mixed part, because even though Confusion is an ailment-based attack, that means it can be countered or nullified with stat cleanse. But if you choose to use such, you are then subject to be punished by her effect clear, which makes her even more dangerous on the field, where you can't actively rely on ailment nullification without getting punished for it. And of course, with her being Sea Legs, she does have a very high natural evade, but she also is surprisingly tanky as well. Almost 4,700 HP for that head, 3,300 per arm, and almost 4,200 for her legs. I mean, even by herself, she is relatively hard to take down without really piling on the hits. And with her kit being the way it is, that can be very tricky to do so with that naturally high evade. And then of course the Shura ability does buff her damage even higher if you don't kill her fast enough. So as a pure set, I would honestly rate Olindi Earth a very solid 8 out of 10 across the board. Good armor, relatively solid mobility too in that sweet spot of 727, which is really good for Sea Legs no less. So very good mobility, good stats across the board. Her only good attack of course is Pile for her consistent damage, but if you choose to use her for the ailment, for Confusion, I would recommend maybe even including Effect Clear in that kit so you can apply that additional punish to anyone that does choose to use a stat cleanse, or any kind of supporting skill to maybe counteract confusion. As a mixed parts, I would rate her very evenly as well at an 8 out of 10 for the exact reasons stated above, that if you are going to use confusion, I would definitely pair it with effect clear, so you have that passive punish as a conditional bonus should the condition be met.